Hi everyone. I'm back and I wanted to go over this glossary of terms that's been organized by the Cleveland Institute of Art called Walk the Walk, Talk the Talk. The reason I want to do it is because I think it's so important and I post a link to it expecting you guys to go to the link, but I learned last semester that I don't think many students did. So let's go old school and go over it together. It's a little bit tricky to print out because it has all of these kind of pictures in it. But if you have a printer that can handle it, I really highly recommend printing this out. So you open it up, and here it is, the first page that I want you to look at. And as you can see, it has all sorts of different terms and words that will be very helpful for you in learning to write about works of art. And let's start with a word like aesthetics, the very first word. I don't really know if you'll be using this one in one of your uh, descriptions, but it's a good word to know about. It's the study or theory of beauty. Basically, that's kind of one of the things that we do in art history. Oops, I just I talk about beauty. Words that you will use in your discussion as you do a formal analysis, talk about the formal properties about works of art. Definitely balance would be a good thing to talk about. A feeling of equal weight, attention, or attraction of visual elements within an artwork. And this is something that's really important that artists talk about in terms of kind of composition. And if we look to the image on the right here, that is also part of this pamphlet, they see them taking on the term asymmetrical or symmetrical balance. And we can see two butterflies, right? We can see the one above is asymmetrical. And the asymmetry of the butterfly makes the butterfly appear to be, moving in a specific direction, right? So if you're going to break this down and how you want to talk about this, you could talk about the asymmetrical balance of the work makes the butterfly appear to veer to the left, let's say, versus a symmetrical version of a butterfly where we can see the wings are the same size on either side. Okay, so this is a very important, good, convenient word to know. Let's see what we can also look at here. Composition, right? That's there as well. The organizing of elements of an artwork into the unified whole, or the arrangement of pictorial elements in a picture plane. How all things in a picture plane kind of work together to create a sense of asymmetry or symmetry. This is an important concept. Keep going. We can see here some of the most interesting words are actually in these little pictures that we see here on the left. The term contour, right? Contour. In art, the outer edge of an object or shape that is most often defined by line, but can be defined by value, texture, color, and mass. And of course, we can see that contour line around the exterior. In 2D or 3D form, this is also can mean an outline or the containment of a form. And I know many of our artists in our class know these terms. This is what you do when you're in art classes. You work on your works of art, and then you have a critique session where you discuss these formal qualities of works of art that you create. Of course, in art history, we take on the context or the historical period in which a work is created. And that's really where we're going to go more and more in our course. But it is important that we understand and we can provide a formal description of a work of art as well as just putting it within a context. Okay, let's look at this page on the right there. Look at the very top and you can see the term gestural, used to describe a quality of expressive movement, often a loose, energetic quality. So oftentimes works of art that are very painterly or where the paint is loosely applied to the canvas can be gestural. It doesn't necessarily mean having to, physically have a gesture in it. Although Works of art like maybe a sculpture by Degas, where you can see the kind of physical quality of the artist's hands in a sculpture. That can also be described as gestural as well. Another word that might be interesting to know and to use is dynamic, right? Active quality conveyed by a sense of movement between the elements. This is similar to gestural in many ways, right? That this composition is dynamic. One might say, in fact, if we go up, let's go back to our two butterflies, right? Which one of these two butterflies might you call dynamic? Would it be the asymmetrical butterfly, right? Makes it appear as if it's moving. So now we have some terms that we can talk about the butterfly as being, you could say, perhaps gestural in the way that the dynamic of the lines. You can talk about the composition as being asymmetrical, creating a dynamic quality in the movement, implied movement of that butterfly. You see what I'm doing here? And don't get frustrated if you're not getting this right away. This is, I've been doing this for 100 years or so. So it's a practice make perfect situation. You're just going to do it and do it and do it and learn these terms, and you will be into a flow before you know it. But it takes some time. So be kind to yourself and and really study these words. Let's see what else. A figure ground, okay? Figure ground relationship. And if we can see what is laid on top of a ground line, a ground basically is the area around a figure, oftentimes called a background. Okay, this is important. The term foreshortening is a good one as well. The reduction or diminishing of the dimension, usually length, of an object or figure in order to present it in its correct spatial relationship. It's a technique used by artists really in the Renaissance. We're not going to really see the use of very much foreshortening in our course. We will look at it a little bit in the Greek period. Come down here. We can talk about hue, of course, when we look at a work of art, or the color, right? A pure color, the quality of a color. There's different ways of talking about color written out there in the web page. Let's go to the right there. Rhythm, right? The sensation of ordered movement implied by the repetition and variation of visual elements in a work of art. And here we can see a sense of rhythm created just with that kind of play of line, right? Getting this sense of kind of dynamic movement in a work of art. One might say that the work on the right is also painterly, right? Painterly. Let's look over here. Having the quality of expertly brushed workmanship, or a term applied to the dominance of tonal masses over line as in the means of defining form in architecture. Painting and sculpture, Edvard Munch's The Scream is an example of painterly style. So why don't you go look that one up? That's quite an extraordinary painting if you don't know it. Okay. Here's more good terms to learn about. We can talk about a work in terms of shading, the subtle blending of one color into another. That's always a good thing to talk about. Let's look at this drawing on the left. This is an important example of positive and negative space. Positive space, space implying an object. Negative space, space surrounding an object or between objects. Positive and negative space can also refer to the figure-ground relationship. So what we see here is a very kind of interesting use of negative space, right? Where we see that the objects here, it looks like a can and a bottle, have actually been created by negative space rather than the positive that we can see has been used around it. And this is a device that artists use. And of course, the figure-ground relationship, the ground in this case, right, would be this positive element, and then the negative space would be the figure implied on the front. Representation, the description or statement of facts, one's representation. That's a good word. Texture is good. This is a term to be used, the kind of the texture of an object. We can certainly talk about texture even with the drawing on the right in the value scale, right? The way that we can see this kind of sense of paint, right? And the kind of rough quality as these various elements are presented. There's a textural quality to them. Value scale, the sequence of values which allows us to measure the lightness or darkness of an object. Okay, so we have something that is lighter in value at the top and then darker at the bottom. Okay, so I do want you to spend the time to go through these and really read them, and I know you're going to find it very helpful.